But it's only going to happen if you decide it's going to change. And we can reverse these trends. And so what I'm hoping that all of you take from today is not that you went to a fun meal, although this was fun. It's not that you went to hear a politician speak, but rather that it made you question and ask yourself, what is it that you can do to make this country and this world better? And if you ask yourself that question, you know, if you feel inside yourself this confidence, this trust in your capacity to put your shoulder to the wheel and change history, then I'm absolutely confident that America will change, and it will change for the better. I'm absolutely confident of it. Now, just in case you are uncertain of your own capacity to change, just remember where I came from. Just remember that I was born in Hawaii, basically raised by a single mom. Just remember that I've probably made more mistakes as a teenager than the vast majority of the people in this crowd. Just remember that you know, when I moved to Chicago, I didn't know a soul. I don't come from a political family. I've got a name that people can't pronounce. In fact, you know, and I'm going to close with this story. When I first announced that I was running for the United States Senate, people thought, you know, he's done a great job as a state legislator. He's, you know, reformed the death penalty in Illinois. He's expanded health care for kids. He has created a more sensible juvenile justice. He will be a good U.S. Senator, but let's face it, nobody in Illinois is going to elect a guy named Barack Obama.
I would.
And so we ran our campaign, and we had some great candidates in the race. One guy spent $30 million in the campaign. Another guy was a sitting state comptroller. At the end of the primary, we had won by 30 points. And people said to themselves, wow, you know, how do you do that? And nobody was more surprised than me. But we still had a general election to run, and we hadn't had a lot of money, and we hadn't been able to campaign much down in southern Illinois. And so Dick Durbin, the senior United States Senator, said, you know what, you need to go down with me to southern Illinois. And for those of you who've never been to southern Illinois is the South. Edwardsville, right there. And if you go to southern Illinois, you know, there's some history there. And we went to 39 cities in 5 days.
Wow.
We went to Edwardsville and Collinville and Caseyville and Moms. We went to every hill and borough in southern Illinois. And one of the places we went to was a place called Cairo, Illinois. And Cairo had a history as the site of some of the worst racial violence of any place in the nation back in the late 60s or early 70s. As bad as anything going on in Mississippi or Alabama at the time. There was a active white citizens council, which was equivalent of the Klan. And there were, you know, cross burnings and, you know, rumored lynchings, and ultimately blacks couldn't work for the businesses in the community. Ultimately, they had to call in the National Guard to try to deal with the situation. And so as we're driving down, Dick Durbin, who's quite a bit older than me, don't tell him I said that, but he's a few years older than me, he started telling me, you know, the first time I went to Cairo was during this period. He had gone there as a young lawyer, working for the Lieutenant Governor to see what could be done to improve the racial climate there. And so he started telling me the story about him going down. And he had taken the bus down, and he got picked up at the bus station by a local volunteer, and he was driven to the motel where he was going to be staying as he was conducting this investigation. And As he's about to get out of the car to go into the motel to check in, the driver grabs him and says, "Listen, let me give you a piece of advice, sir." And he said, "What's that?" He said, "Whatever you do, don't use the telephone in your motel room." He says, "Well, why not?" He said, "Well, the switchboard operator is a member of the White Citizens Council and will report on anything that you say." And this obviously made them concerned, but he had a job to do. And so he went ahead and he checked in, went up to his room, starts unpacking his bags. And suddenly, he hears a knock on the door. And he opens up the door, and there's a guy standing there. Mean-looking guy. Big guy. Looks down at him and says, "What the heck are you doing here?" And now Dick's really worried. And so am I, because we're pulling into Cairo as he's telling me this story. and we go around the old county courthouse, and I've got all kinds of images of what kind of reception I'm going to be getting. And suddenly, we come to a big parking lot. And the crowd's not as big as this, but there are about 400 people standing there. And as we get closer, I notice that about a quarter of them are black, and maybe about 3/4 of them are white. And we get closer still, and we notice that they're all wearing these little blue buttons. It says, Obama for U.S. Senate. And we get off the van, and they're all smiling and hugging and handing us barbecue and taking pictures. And I looked at Durbin, and he looked at me, and he knew what I was thinking, and I knew what he was thinking. If you had told Dick Durbin 30 years ago that he, the son of Lithuanian immigrants, born into near poverty in East St. Louis, Illinois, would be returning to Cairo as the senior senator from the state of Illinois, and that he'd have in tow a black guy, born in Hawaii with a father from Kenya and a mother from Kansas named Barack Obama, nobody would have believed it. They would have said, "You're crazy." And yet it was happening. And it reminds me of something that Dr. King once said 2 weeks after Bloody Sunday, after some of those young people had gone down and risked their lives, after the marches had been turned back at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. He gathered people up and he said, "I understand that you are fearful. I understand that you may be near despair, but let me just tell you something. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. It bends towards justice." And here's the thing, George Mason, here's the thing, young people, it doesn't bend on its own. It bends because you put your hand on that arc and you bend it in the direction of justice. It bends in that direction because you decide you're going to stand up to a war that should have never been waged. It bends because you decide that we need a healthcare system for all Americans. It bends because you make a decision that every child in America deserves a decent education, even if they're not wealthy. And that every senior citizen deserves to retire with dignity and respect. And you make a decision that we don't want to just be feared in the world, but we want to be respected in the world. And you make a decision that we want to make the sacrifices and take the steps to avoid a melting of the polar ice caps and a drowning of the coast all across this world. You make that decision. And if you grab that up, think about all the power that's represented here. If all of you decide that you are going to get involved, if you all grab that arc, then I have no doubt, I have absolutely no doubt that regardless of what happens in this presidential year, and regardless of what happens in this campaign, America will transform itself. And the future for my children and my grandchildren and my grand-grandchildren is going to be bright. Thank you so much, everybody.